I'm a fan of globalization. I'm a fan of the technology revolution. How could you not be? But the reality is these economic forces are simultaneously putting downward pressure on the wages of the middle classes in middle and increasingly high-income countries, even as the people at the very, very top are benefiting. And I think we find it quite hard to talk about it that way. We lack a language that talks about an economic force that can have a differential impact on people who are in different places in society. So that's why they're connected. Why should we be thoughtful about or even think about people at the very, very top and the gap between them and everybody else growing? I would say let's set aside aesthetic reasons, let's even set aside Amartya Sen type reasons of justice and fairness and all that. And I think the reasons are the ones you outlined. They are, first of all, I think we need to worry a lot about how this first generation of the working rich quickly solidifies into an anti-social mobility society. And you can see how that happens. I mean, in my book, I quote Larry Summers, one of my favorite lines. He talks about when he was president of Harvard, sitting on the deliberations of the admissions committee. And there was one kid, he says, who was like, would clearly do well at Harvard, great grades, great SAT scores, but not exceptional in any way, except for one thing. Spoke perfect Chinese and had learned it not in school, but because his parents had hired a Mandarin tutor to come 4 days a week to teach the kid Chinese. And Larry says, what do you do about that? You know, clearly it shows the kid is a great kid because he's in high school and he's studying Chinese as extra. But you have to be really rich to afford a Mandarin tutor to come 4 days a week. And how, even in a pure meritocracy, how do you avoid, when you have these huge gaps, the next generation benefiting? But even more important than that, I think, is this issue of avoidance of taxation. And in a global economy, I think that becomes very hard. And I think it is about political capture. And most important of all, the thing I worry about is cognitive capture. I think Willem Boyder, who interestingly, right, he was an economist and now he's the chief economist of Citigroup, so talk about cognitive capture. But he wrote a great paper about he wrote a great paper about the 2008 financial crisis. And his argument was it wasn't about actual corruption. It wasn't about people being bought off, but it was about an entire intellectual elite, regulators, economists, think tank people, journalists, everybody coming to see the world from the point of view of the banks and not anybody else. And if you want an example of this, for me, the best example is this paper that McKinsey did, commissioned by Mike Bloomberg and Chuck Schumer. So, you know, hardly hard right crazy people, published in 2007. And the thesis of the paper is it's about how New York is losing ground to London as a financial center. And the key problems, this is January 2007. Think how close we were to the financial crisis. One, too much regulation of credit derivatives. It's in the paper, read it. It's like not enough credit derivatives trading in New York, not enough financial innovation in this key sector. This is a pressing danger for the US economy. Second big danger that this paper identifies, too onerous capital requirements on US banks. Okay? So cognitive capture. Elliot Spitzer said this was a great paper. He supported it too. We all thought it was okay. And it's not because we were corrupt, but that to me is why the income inequality has these very difficult effects on how our whole society runs.